The following news flash is brought to you by the Lone Star Lowdown, providing your daily bulletins for the commodities market. Today in history, news updates, and the inside scoop into the tides of the alternative. Markets for Friday, the 18th of March, 2016 are currently trading with gold at $1,255.09 an ounce, silver $15.79 an ounce, Texas crude $40.20 a barrel, and Bitcoin is currently sitting at about 409 U.S. currency. Today in history, the year 1314, Jacques de Molay, the 23rd and last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, is burned at the stake at a scaffold in front of Notre Dame by decree of the cardinals and in conjunction with the Archbishop of Sens and some other prelates who were called in. Templar Grand Masters de Molay and Charnay were slowly burned to death for refusing to recant their heretical beliefs. Today in history. In recent news, Salah Abdeslam, Europe's most wanted man for being suspected of physically partaking in the Paris Islamic State shootings November of last year, was captured today after a shootout in Brussels. This capture finally giving investigators the first suspected active participant to be taken alive. Prosecutors said a second wanted man, who used the false name of Amin Chakouri, was also wounded and captured in the raid. Luckily, French President François Hollande was visiting Brussels for a European summit and was able to personally conduct a joint news conference with the Belgian Prime Minister Charles Michel, where he said that France would request very soon the extradition of Salah Abdeslam. Security services will obviously be seeking information on Islamic State plans and structures, his contacts in Europe and in Syria, and looking into his support and financial networks. Police did obtain Abdesam's fingerprints as well as fake Syrian and Belgian identity documents. Radar scans of King Tut's burial chamber have revealed two hidden compartments. Yesterday at a Cairo news conference, Egyptian Antiquities Minister Mamdouh Al-Damadi declined to comment on whether any royal treasure or more mummies might be inside of the rooms, but did state that the unexplored chambers could hold some kind of organic or metal objects. He also showed the results of the radar scans that revealed anomalies in the walls of the tomb, indicating a possible hidden door and rooms behind false walls that were covered up and painted over with hieroglyphics. The radar scans of the chamber taken last year and analyzed in Japan are set to be repeated at the end of the month for verification. The Lone Star Lowdown is currently looking to fill some ad slots. If you have a product or a service that you would like to advertise with us, feel free to give me a call at 210-363-2257. This has been Rick Rohde with your Lowdown for March 18th, 2016.
No one had a bad trip. It was all very good. No one had a bad trip. It was all very good. Nope. It was all very good.
I walk when they say run, and I run when they shoot me up. No, they won't let me out of the asylum. No, they won't let me out of the asylum. I've got to get up, 'cause here they come. It's not so easy to get up for some. I'm broken and I'm insane.
No one had a bad trip.
If you saw what I saw, you'd be the same.
It was all very good.
I've got to get up, 'cause here they come. Now they won't let me out of the asylum. Whatever happened to my phone call weekly when I could scream your name? Whatever happened to the photo by my bedside? You never seem to age. They tell me 33 milligrams 3 times a day will kill the pain. But the voice, it screams so loud. I get quiet when it screams and shouts. And my head kick up all day.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Be Brave Radio every Saturday from 11 to 2 a.m. Central Standard Time here on Logos Radio Network. You can also hear us on our fabulous affiliate, and that affiliate is TXLR 89.1 FM on your FM dial. This is John Bush. Today we're going to be joined, of course, by my lovely co-hosts, Elizabeth Egan Everett and Leland Freeman. And they're actually at the Senatorial District Convention here in Travis County. We had a few difficulties. We were about to bring them on at the beginning of the show, but we were having trouble with the connection over there. So they should be joining us in the second segment. And the plan is to pull some folks that are there at the convention aside and chat with them and interview them. There's some elected officials. We may be able to hear from Don Zimmerman. Yes, the Don Zimmerman, city council member, Libertarian Republican, who's really been making some waves. And I'm hoping that we can pull aside maybe the county chair, James Dickey, or his vice chair, and chat with them about what's going on with Travis County GOP and get an update on what's going down with Robert Morrow. If you haven't heard, Robert Morrow, who's a liberty activist here in Central Texas, he was recently elected as the chair of the Travis County Republican Party, and a lot of people are pretty ticked off about that because he is quite the vulgar fellow, to say the least. So they're trying to oust him, and I'd love to be able to talk with some of the party guard, the old guard there, to see how their quest to undo the democratic process is doing. And so they're there at the Senatorial District Convention. If you don't know, the way that works here in Texas is on Election Day. Generally, it's on Election Day, but this time it was actually on the Saturday after Election Day. You can go and participate in your precinct convention, and that's a smaller group of Republicans in your precinct, which is the smallest political jurisdiction here in Travis County, and I believe across the country. That's how they do it. If you are voted to go to the senatorial district from the precinct convention, you go to the senatorial district convention, and there you can vote on platform items, and the big thing is they vote on who's going to go to the big, bad state convention. We'll let Leland and Elizabeth tell us the date on when that's coming up, but that's basically what's going to be decided today at this convention. Of course, there's a lot of liberty activists that are still involved with the Republican Party. A lot of people got involved in 2007, 2008 when Ron Paul ran for president. There's a huge groundswell and just a bunch of activists that got involved. And a lot of people are still involved. Myself, I bowed out after 2008. I thought that I was a Republican for a while, and wow, I found my political home. This is great. I'm an anti-war, pro-market, libertarian Republican. Let's take over the Republican Party and change it for good. Well, that didn't end up working out for me. Didn't make me feel more free. And, I was pretty critical of that whole route for a while. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of good people that are doing some good work within the Republican Party. And it makes me excited to see that there's a shift, if only in rhetoric. A lot of the politicians are speaking libertarian rhetoric. And then sometimes when they get elected, they don't necessarily follow through. But for me, it's a good signal that people are trying to appeal to libertarianism and to the philosophy of not only small government, but extremely limited government and free markets. I think it's a good sign on basically the political climate here in the States. As government expands at an immense rate, almost immeasurable, there's a lot of people that are wanting to throw back to an old school way of doing things that was a lot smaller. Now, that being said, people say, let's return to the Constitution. Let's go back to the good old days of our founding fathers. I want everyone to remember there's a big mythos surrounding the founding of this country. And people that want to return to the good old days of 1789, not so fast, I would say. I would caution you. If you recall, back then, it was a very small percentage of people, the political elite. They were all Anglo. They were all landowners. Many of them were lawyers. Many of them were industrialists and people of high stature that had a lot of money. They were basically the only ones that participated in the political process. In fact, the drafting of the Constitution, the ratification of the Constitution in all of the different states and colonies, it was actually only decided by about 10% of the population at the time in the states back in 1789. 10% of the U.S. population decided on what form of government would govern those that happen to inhabit the geographic area known as the United States of America for the next 300 plus years. Who knows how long this experiment's going to go on, but I know that I certainly had no say in the way that this government was formed or anything about it. And even to this day, I have very little say in how politicians determine things and how things are dictated. And of course, if you were black at that time, you were probably property of someone else. If you were a woman, you couldn't vote or participate in the politics of the day. So I caution you, if you want to return to some good old days, they weren't that good. In fact, going even further, the actual founding of this country, when Westerners started colonizing, not only did they do a massive genocide as they expanded westward, but a lot of the people that first inhabited this area, now known as the United States of America, were either slaves or indentured servants. And the people that came over that had positions of power were actually corporate entities. They were corporations of the British Crown, like the British East India Company. And they came over and they were called governors at first. And it was one individual with privilege from the crown that basically dictated what took place in a massive geographic area. So if you ask me, that's not very libertarian. That's not very small government. That isn't consistent with the ideas of self-ownership, free markets, free movement, voluntary association, voluntary exchange. Of course, there were taxes right off the bat. It's just a really nasty history. So I just want to throw that out there. We could go on and on for that. And if we continue to have trouble getting Leland and Elizabeth in, maybe we will go on and on about that. But quick message to my producer here. I don't have my caller screen set up, so I'm not going to know when we're coming up on a break, Eric. So if you hear me, give me a signal so I know that you're listening over there, and give me a signal whenever we get to 1 minute and then like 30 seconds so I know whenever to stop talking. So the show is broadcast from Brave New Books, 1904 Guadalupe Street, Suite B. We've been around since 2006, and many people believe that we're the heart of the liberty movement here in Central Texas. And my wife and I recently took over the store in May of 2015, and we are very proud to have the honor of keeping this wonderful project going. Right now, if you want to come on down and get your worship on, we have an underground church going on every Saturday at 10:30. Stephen Jones leads a worship session. And there's a lot of good, freedom-loving Christians that come down and they get their worship on together. So really excited to do that. He approached me and said that he had a calling from God, from the Lord, and he was destined to do this. He needed a place. And I thought, man, what better spot than here at the bookstore? So we have an underground church going on and an underground bookstore. No 501c3, so there's no opinions that are not allowed. They definitely talk politics and talk shop. So come on down 10:30. And then I also want to let you know later on at 3 o'clock, Danny Sessoms of The Crypto Show, which is also a program you can hear here on Logos Radio Network that broadcasts Wednesday and Sunday from 8 to 10 p.m., he, along with Lynn Ulbricht, she is the mother of Ross Ulbricht, who right now is behind bars. He is the alleged founder. Well, he admitted himself, so it's no longer alleged. He founded the Silk Road online marketplace, which was a marketplace only accessible through the deep web, through Tor, that allowed you to buy illicit goods, things that the man didn't want you to have. You could get them there on Silk Road using Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, decentralized peer-to-peer cryptocurrency. Well, he got busted, and according to Edward Snowden, who recently gave a talk at Liberty Forum in New Hampshire, the NSA likely was involved in tracking and tracing all of his communication and proving some of the theories that the DEA and the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI had. So how's that for domestic surveillance? Nonetheless, I digress. Danny Sessoms, who has been a tireless advocate for Ross Ulbricht and his family, he will be organizing a pub crawl today. So at 3 o'clock, a bunch of activists and crypto anarchists and supporters of Ross Ulbricht will be meeting here at the bookstore, and then they're going to go do a pub crawl. South by Southwest is going on, and the plan is to link up with other folks and to go down and spread some awareness. Everyone is invited to wear their free Ross shirt, which I'm wearing myself. There will be some free Ross shirts available for purchase. All of the proceeds, of course, go to support the Free Ross effort. And they're going to come down here, meet up, and then go talk shop with people as they booze and have a good time down in the 6th Street Bar District. Of course, the money that's raised is going to go towards Ross's appeal. There was a lot of shenanigans that took place from the injustice system, from the judge denying access to crucial evidence, to the FBI and the DEA having crooked law enforcement that literally laundered money, extorted money, engaged in blackmail with some of the organizers of the Silk Road. It's really funny that criminals oftentimes, just because you have a badge or an official title doesn't mean that you're a good person. And in reality, those criminals that have public titles are actually more dangerous than the private criminals, precisely because they have this public title, whether it's officer, detective.
You are listening to the Logos Radio Network, LogosRadioNetwork.com.
What a dream.
Welcome back to Be Brave Radio every Saturday from 11 to 2 here on Logos Radio Network. You can hear us on 89.1 FM TXLR, or get the TuneIn app, which is a great app that enables you to listen anywhere across the country to the Logos Radio Network or the TXLR online stream. Well, folks, we are joined now by my lovely co-hosts, Elizabeth Egan Everett and the Leland Freeman, and they're broadcasting live from the Senate District Convention here in Travis County. Hey, guys, I'm glad we were able to bring you on. How's the convention going?
It's actually going on pretty smoothly, actually, John.
Hello.
Hey. So what, y'all are set up there out in the courtyard, or what's going on?
We're actually set up in the lobby, which is just off the main hall next to the registration booth. And there was some minor issues with some electrical outlets not working and network connections, but we seem to be broadcasting just fine now. We witnessed some historic events already transpire. James Dickey and Robert Morrow were here, and they actually had a very cordial conversation, very pleasant conversation that went on for about at least 20 minutes.
All right, fill the listeners in on who those people are for those that aren't aware.
James Dickey is the current chairman of the Travis County Republican Party, and Robert Morrow, well, if you do a Google search, you'll probably see a lot of my photos lifted by the New York Daily News, Texas Tribune, and HBO, and not crediting me for the photos.
HBO, that's right.
Yeah, was it who was the guy, the British guy who has that news show now?
I don't remember his name. It's Josh something.
John Oliver. Yeah,
Oliver. So hilarious segment.
They used my photo and they blurred out my watermarks. I mean, that's not cool. That's the thing I'm complaining about. But
dirty tricks, I tell you.
But I mean, they had it seemed like a very productive conversation out in the lobby. They both were had to go to their respective Senate district conventions. James Dickey, I think, is SD25. Not entirely sure where Robert Morrow's is. I think his might be SD24. We are SD14. So there is from my understanding, 5 different Senate districts in Travis County where we're broadcasting out of, and we're SD14, which is the biggest out of all of them.
Yeah, so far it's been fascinating. Everyone's been lining up to get their precincts all sorted out as delegates for the next step. And so far so good, and I think everyone's begun to caucus now. And it has begun.
Yeah, Don Zimmerman's also in attendance as the delegate. So we're going to try to get him on the show before the 2 o'clock hour when we hand it over to Ryan Mutzel and the gangs at Burke Circuit Foods.
Excellent. Tell me, what's the crowd like? I participated in the precinct convention, the senatorial district convention in 2008, and then onward to the state convention. And that was back when the Ron Paul revolution was in full swing, and SD25. Back then, there were only 2 Senate districts in Travis County. Of course, it's been gerrymandered to high heaven since then. SD14 was the big one, and then a small slither of South Travis County with SD25.
That's SD20, which has only, I believe, 20 delegates in their SD convention. And our friend Jonathan Rumi, and I thought he was in SD14, but he's apparently in SD25. So they're going to get done fairly quickly over there. And their convention is out by the racetrack at the Elroy Library. Ours is at the East Austin Prep on 183 and MLK.
Awesome.
And it's interesting is that Rachel Malone is actually part of our Senate district, and she's out in Bastrop. Her precinct is in Bastrop County, and she's the founder of Texas Firearms Freedom. She's actually trying to get a resolution taken to the Resolutions Committee, which can be added to the party platform if it makes through all those steps, which would implore the legislature to eliminate all gun-free zones. Like right now, since this is a school that we're having the convention, we legally cannot carry our firearms in here. Even with license to carry. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you would think this was actually quite an important place to do that right now. We have a lot of very special, awesome, important people, per se, that are pivotal in making rather major decisions, and we're all in one space, and wouldn't it be nice if we could actually protect ourselves if needed?
Yeah, the gun-free zones are scary. Back in 2008 at the Senatorial District 25 convention, there was a bunch of young people there for the Ron Paul revolution. We actually had a majority and sent a full slate of Ron Paul folks with only 4 of the establishment Republicans. What are the demographics like? Are the young people still involved, or is it back to the old guard? What's it like in 2016 now?
It's an interesting mix. It's an interesting mix of senior citizens are actually Liberty guys, as well as there are some young people here. However, due to the fact that state law required them to have the convention the same week as spring break, as well as South by Southwest, there's only about half the amount of total delegates that they were expecting here at the Senate District Convention. So there's about 320, and they were expecting up to 700.
Wow. Do you think the overall climate is shifting towards more liberty, smaller government, towards grassroots stuff, or does the establishment still have a pretty strong foothold in the Travis County Republican Party?
I think unfortunately it's veering more towards establishment, at least from my conversations I've already been having. It's a little frustrating to see. I feel like we've gone perhaps a little backward, but only time will tell. The conversations have begun. I know I've been talking about both Cruz and Trump to certain people, and I don't know. I'm a little nervous. I'm not so hopeful at the moment. We'll see as the day progresses.
Well, what's of interest is that Dan Patrick, who was a big Hughes supporter, said point blank that the party would implode if they nominate anybody other than Cruz or Trump at this point.
I think that's an understanding.
And Trump is the only one that can mathematically get the 1237 required delegates without basically having to run the table and win every single state. Cruz, in theory, could do it, but you would have to win at least 87% of the remaining states. Trump can do it and probably go in 50-50. And Chips and Kasich. It's a very interesting dynamic that Glenn Beck made a big point on his show.
Your buddy Glenn.
That when they put the confetti out on Kasich's win of Ohio, he called him a son of a bitch, and he said that you're celebrating the fact that if you flush the toilet, it flushes, and it works. That's what he was. It's exactly what he said. So the fact that he's still in the race, and the fact that you also hear Romney and Paul Ryan, and you had Boner, the former Speaker of the House.
I think all that's being seen as a joke.
He wants Ryan.
I think all that's being seen as a joke, though, at least so far with the conversations I've been having, and people actually feel that Trump will make the 1237. Of the delegates as we move along. Especially with New York coming along.
New York, New Jersey, and especially since New Jersey is a winner-take-all state, he also between his geographic area and is also. Governor Krispy Kreme endorsing him.
Governor Donut,
Governor Krispy Kreme versus Chips and Kasich. And the fact is, which is the guy that was bouncing? Oh, yeah, it was Romney that was bouncing around saying that he was originally going to support Rubio, then Kasich, and now Cruz in Utah. So the fact that there's an interesting...
Anyone but Trump.
Well, there's an interesting dynamic that Alex Jones had on a couple days ago with, was it Skousen, the guy who did the...
Skousen, Joel Skousen. Yeah, awesome.
Strategic relocation.
And Secure Homes, great books.
But they was basically stating, is it a Trump Cruz? And he's warming up to a Trump Cruz ticket, which I'm wondering if that's like Reagan Bush back in 1980. Yes, it would be a super win, but the thing is that would then Trump be a marked person, and then they try to...
And then Cruz steps in.
He's already a marked person.
Well, of course he is. Well, actually, we just saw in the news, I think it was yesterday, that one of his sons, Eric Trump, received a little envelope with some white powder in it and a message saying, next time it will be real.
And then, was it a couple months ago, they screwed with his plane?
Well, the plane, they also set fire in the Chicago Trump towers recently. So, I mean, and we ain't seen nothing yet. I mean... And
then the Ohio incident where the guy was bailed out before he was charged, and the fact he got
Chicago now. All the rallies, not only is he in danger from the establishment, but he's also in danger from all of these young leftists who themselves are being controlled and manipulated from the left establishment. The right establishment's out to get him. Everyone's out to get him, so who knows what's going on. And we're coming up on a break here. Well, we're broadcasting. I'm here at Brave New Books, and Elizabeth and Leland are at the Senatorial District Convention in Travis County. We're going to be bringing you more information about the presidential election, some local politics, and then we'll be interviewing some of the delegates there at the convention and giving you the lowdown on what's going down with the Republican Party here in Texas. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.
If you can't beat 'em, eat 'em. That's the rallying cry of a new food movement, and their members could be living and hunting right in your neighborhood. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht, and I'll be back with more in just a moment.
Privacy is under attack. When you give up data about yourself, you'll never get it back again. And once your privacy is gone, you'll find your freedoms will start to vanish too. So protect your rights, say no to surveillance, and keep your information to yourself. Privacy, it's worth hanging on to. This public service announcement is brought to you by StartPage.com, the private search engine alternative to Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Start over with StartPage.
All you need is an open mind and a healthy appetite to help save the planet. That's the philosophy of environmental activists called invasivores. Their goal is to save the planet from invasive plants and animals by hunting them down and eating them. Governments have spent billions trying to eradicate pests like Asian carp and edible weeds that threaten native ecosystems, but they haven't had much success. Invasivores figure if they can get humans to develop a taste for dishes like broiled lionfish with sautéed field mustard greens, the invaders won't stand a chance. So they're blogging and writing cookbooks in hopes you'll help make mincemeat out of control species. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
You're listening to the Logos Radio Network at LogosRadioNetwork.com.
back. Welcome back to the show. Be Brave Radio. John Bush, Elizabeth Egan Everett, and Leland Freeman. Elizabeth and Leland are broadcasting from the Senatorial District Convention, Travis County Republican Party, doing the GOP thing. And, of course, one thing I really enjoy as the local liberty movement is always in the news, whether it's Fox 7, The Chronicle, whether it's Cargill, Morrow, Laura Presley, Brave New Books. Leland Freeman there using his photos is Our People, Our Movement are everywhere. So we're going to be chatting with some of our local liberty friends that are participating in the Republican Party. And it sounds like Leland and Elizabeth have one of them right now.
Yes, we actually have Laura Presley, a good friend of ours, who's also now recently anointed precinct chair of Precinct 140 in the Travis County Republican Party. And we're going to talk about ballot integrity and trying to get a resolution on the state party platform.
Yes. So, Leland, thanks for having me on. And it's been a really exciting convention, as much as it can be from a political standpoint. I think it's exciting. We have a resolution that is going to be presented to the Resolutions Committee for ballot integrity. And one thing that's been requested, we submitted a couple of resolutions that are really detailed and procedurally based and all that, and we got pushback, and we were asked to make it more broad. So what we did was we made a statement. We want the Secretary of State of Texas to cease providing waivers to counties to break law across the state of Texas. That's pretty simple, isn't it?
And they've been having to do these waivers for, the past 15 years?
Well, I don't know how long they've been doing these, but we know a couple of years they've been doing waivers where they don't print tapes. One of the major election records, it's an official election record of how the computer says we voted, are these results tapes. And we've talked about this before. Every electronic voting precinct is to print a results tape of what each candidate received, the votes that each candidate received at that location, and that is to be retained for about 2 years to document what the computer says you voted, when they take those memory cards down to the county. And so you want a documentation of what the results are before the equipment leaves the building and becomes corrupted. And the Secretary of State has provided waivers to counties across the state to not print these tapes because it just takes too long. Don't worry about printing those tapes. So that is one thing that will be addressed with this resolution. The second thing we found out is that the Secretary of State of Texas has also been giving waivers to all the counties in Texas to not do paper ballot audits that are required by law. And so the Secretary of State gave a waiver to 254 counties, every single county in the state of Texas. Don't worry. Don't do that paper ballot audit that's required.
Wow.
It is shocking. It is. So if you want to open the door for fraud, there it is.
Yeah.
And so we're putting up a resolution to try to address that and say, hey, you know what? We want the Secretary of State's office to stop giving waivers that counties don't have to follow election law. Pretty basic, pretty simple. Yeah.
Not too tough. Does the law empower the state Secretary of State? Because I know often there's what's law, and then there's these administrative bodies that often have kind of free range within the terms of the law. So is the Secretary of State empowered by the law to make these decisions, or is the law pretty clear cut that this needs to go down? And in essence, the waiver is BS.
Great question, John. On the first count, where the tapes are not being printed, there's nowhere in the election code that says he has the authority to tell counties to not follow statute. Okay. The second one, with regard to these ballot audits, these paper ballot audits, there is a statute that says the Secretary of State can provide a waiver to a particular county to not do the audit. But to provide a waiver to 254 all at once, that's not permitted.
Is it all counties that are doing waivers?
That's the abuse of
this election law dates back to what, 2000, 2002?
Well, that portion goes. The election law goes all the way back to the 80s. There was a major rehaul done in the 1986 where a lot of this stuff came into play. And then as electronic voting came in, some adjustments were made, but nothing that says you cannot print these tapes. That's the biggest, most egregious violation. So that's what we're trying to address, regardless if it's the practice of the Secretary of State's administrative, they're doing this administratively. We want the platform of the Republican Party to say stop. We do not want waivers to law. Done deal.
And the other interesting thing about the Secretary of State, it is not an elected position. It is actually appointed by the governor of the state of Texas.
Yes, they're appointed. So we've got, we've done a campaign to bring awareness to what's going on and how these laws are being violated. We're not happy about it. A lot of counties are not happy about it. Multiple counties are putting up resolutions similar to ours across the state in their conventions. So hopefully we'll get something on the platform. Yeah. Well, I do appreciate the time, guys. I'm really grateful to let us talk about this.
And didn't you have a book? You're working on a book or something that you were about to or putting out? Oh,
no.
No, I don't think so.
Never mind.
No,
She
no.
will someday. Hey, Laura, real quick.
Yeah, just wait. Yeah, give me some time. So, the big thing is right now our appeal in front of the Third Court of Appeals, and we should hear something in about maybe a month or two, if not sooner. And our brief is completed. We're the first candidate in the state of Texas to file this appeal for the violation of the election laws across the state. And, this last primary, there were about 4 candidates across the state that could have filed election contests. We knew that there were laws that were being broken and some really egregious issues with their elections.
Your poll watchers also in Travis County also witnessed, once
Right.
again, multiple
poll
cases of data
watchers-
corruption errors, and people called into the Todd Don show saying that their votes are being flipped from Trump to Rubio.
There's a lot of issues in Travis County, but I'll tell you guys, there's issues going on all over the state. There were 4 candidates that probably should have asked for recounts and done election contests, and we could not convince them to do it because of the fear of being called a sore loser, even though they knew issues had occurred. And I'm going to tell you, it's hard to do what we're doing, and we couldn't do it without the support of Logos Radio and everybody at Brave New Books and everybody here, Leland and John and everybody that has helped us and donated. We couldn't do it without you. So just thank God for all our supporters. Thank you.
We'll keep it up,
thank you,
Laura.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining us. We only had Laura for a moment, but we'll have her on regularly on Be Brave Radio to update us on what's going on. And I was curious, we'll have to ask her next time, or maybe ask Robert Morrow. Now that Robert Morrow is the chairman-elect of the Travis County Republican Party, one of the things that the chairman of the party is tasked with is overseeing the election. So I'm wondering if there's any leverage there that Robert can kind of...
He doesn't really seem to have any interest right now for that. I mean,
You asked him?
I asked him about conducting the conventions, fundraising for other candidates. He goes, other people in the party can do that. And so, but
what about the election stuff, the integrity?
That's one of the things where it's one thing about his personality. But if he ran for a job that he doesn't intend on doing the actual legwork, that could be a serious issue. And that would be something I would definitely, when we have him on the show, ask him. Just going like, look, this is not what your ideas are. More of like a. Not the chairman, but maybe the communications director kind of thing.
And he has the chance to actually prove himself to be a hero. I mean, maybe he can come through all this, ridicule and anger and frustration and come through and actually really serve, the party and change everybody's minds.
Job of the chairman. The job of the chairman is to recruit. Candidates, fundraise for the candidates through the party, as well as get out the vote and run the conventions and the elections. And so far, he's not really interested in that. He's more of from a philosophical standpoint of getting more liberty people elected. Like he wants to get Don Zimmer and Gerald Doherty reelected, but finding candidates that could either fill the role of those that aren't Republicans or to replace rhinos. He doesn't seem that interested in doing that.
I think his number one directives, he's like a machine. He's like a robot, and he's programmed to expose the Bush crime family, expose Herbert Walker as a pedophile, expose the Clintons, and expose LBJ as the murderer of JFK. I think all of his actions are a means to that end, including having big-breasted women on his Facebook page. I think it's all to attract people to look at his page, and then they're looking at breasts, and then boom, there's a link to an article about George Bush and their affiliation with sex slavery and stuff like that. I think that's what his goal is.
Well, yeah, but that's all fine and good, but it's sort of like a one trick pony, or I guess a one issue candidates. But the thing is, you have to be a party chair. It's like all the issues that the party would be concerned about, such as taxation and districting and getting other candidates elected. And it's this new wave of populism that I guess we could talk about in the next segment that we're going to be coming up on break shortly.
Well, look, here's the thing. I also have a feeling that psychologically as a being, when suddenly you've got thousands of people angry at you, doing posts about you and news shows and whatever, that you would withdraw.
We're going to come up on a break shortly.
I mean, I get it psychologically. I know what you mean.
And
all right, we're coming up on a break, guys. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Awesome. See you soon. Easy.
I will live my life.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Be Brave Radio every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. here on Logos Radio Network. You can also hear us on our Big Bad affiliate in Austin, Texas, the capital of Texas, and the Liberty capital of the world, if you ask me. That's at TXLR 89.1 FM. Today's the Senatorial District Convention edition of the program. It's Saturday, March 19th, and Leland and Elizabeth are broadcasting live from their SD convention for the Republican Party. And it sounds like we're going to be bringing guests from there. We're getting some seated elected officials, some candidates, some of our friendlies that are there as well. And it sounds like we have someone that's running against Donna Dukes, who's quite the corrupt incumbent, who always is getting in trouble, but always seems to get reelected. Let's see if the person we're going to interview can unseat her, but we'll go ahead and turn it over to Leland to introduce our next guest.
Yes, we actually have Gabriel Nela, who's running against Donna Dukes, House District 46. And there's a million things we can say about Donna Dukes, which we will probably get to just only a small handful of those due to the time constraints. We'll probably have to have a radio show that would go on for the next 2 years to name every single thing. But the first thing we could talk about is Dukes is physically unable to serve. And do we want to go? How much detail do you want to go into that?
Well, I understand people get hurt when they have accidents, and I'm respecting the situation on that part. What I am going to be saying is this: I am the functional candidate. She had made a comment to one of the newspapers saying she is not functional. I'm here to let everybody know, and that's a direct quote. I wanted to let everybody know that I am the functional candidate.
How many votes did she actually partake in? It's not how many did she miss, because she missed most. How many actual votes did she actually partake in last session?
I believe we were told it was 2 or 3. But here's what we do know. Out of 130 days or 140 days that she was in, or that the session was in, she was in for 5.
What?
Now, let me put it to you this way. I'm a teacher.
Rubio, eh?
Yeah. I'll put it to you this way. I'm a teacher by trade right now. I work with middle school students. If I missed a day, we can probably see things by or go make things working. If I miss a week, there might be a little bit of a problem, especially if I can't justify why I'm out. If I'm out for a month, I'm looking for another job.
No, yeah.
And the fact that she was incapacitated before the last session, ran for re-election, and the fact that she used her staffers for personal errands, and the fact that she's running again for re-election. And there's a few things that come to my mind. One, how come she wasn't challenged on the Democratic side?
This year, I'm not sure. I believe there might have been someone that contemplated the situation, contemplated running against her, but for one reason or another, nothing happened.
And this is East Travis County. And so you have been a resident for Travis County for how many years?
It has been for since 2012. So we're looking at 4 years. I'm a transplant from El Paso, Texas, born and reared, as we say in Texas. We don't raise our kids, we rear them. I've been in and out of Texas for most of the time there. I spent some time away for 11 years in Nevada, but came back to help take care of my dad. And then I had the opportunity to move to Austin. And my daughter and I have had the really great time here.
Awesome.
How would your I know it's kind of hard to compare considering that she really hadn't had any legislative policies or votes this past session, but how would your philosophy and legislative policies as a legislature be different than the way she ran that particular district for, how many years has she been?
I believe it's 22 years.
She's had that seat for 22 years. So that's 12 elections.
She is the establishment. She is the definition of the establishment. And here's what I've been telling people that we've been talking to about our campaign. We want to make sure that as a representative, I will represent our district at the Capitol, but also represent our district in the community sense. We want to make sure that we are out there in the community talking to every single neighborhood association, talking to every single group that's out there to see how we can help and make our district a lot better than it is right now.
Actually make some changes.
Yes, definitely.
Versus someone who's high on the pedestal for 22 years and really doesn't care about the district.
Correct. And one of the things that we've seen also with the district is this. In talking to some of the voters, we've asked this one question. We asked them, has your representative been here talking to you?
No.
Has she represented you?
Yes.
No.
Has she been here to your events? Has she been here talking to you? Has she had someone there talking, seeing what they can do to help out? And the answer that I've been getting is no.
Well, how can she if she's not quote unquote functional?
Well, that's true, but she's had 22 years to do that. She could have been out there anytime before her accident in 2013 and say, hey, what can we do to help?
And this all trickles down to even their staff members, because, for example, you go to an establishment representative or establishment senator, establishment elected official, generally you don't ever get to see them. You don't ever even get to shake their hands. And then their staffers kind of listen to you for about 2 minutes and then use every excuse to kick you out of the office. Versus you go to someone who is actually cares about their constituents, actually is a liberty person, dare I use that word. You actually have wonderful conversations with their staff, you can become good friends with them, and then you even have, and then if you really cared about their constituents, they would actually take the time and actually speak with you on a one-on-one basis.
Exactly, and this is why when I talk to people about what we're doing, and we talk to the groups, they all have my information. They know how to get a hold of me. All my business cards on my website and on Facebook has my contact information. If they want to reach out to me, I'll give them my number right now. It's 512-541-5122. They can call me. They can text me. I'm available basically from like 6 in the morning. Actually, about 5:30. It's about midnight.
And you're here right now,
And I'm here right now.
at the Senate District 14 convention at, was it the East Austin Prep on
East Austin College
183 and MLK Boulevard?
Yes, the address is 5800 East Martin Luther King Boulevard. And in fact, I will add this preface here. I started my education career here last year as a tutor.
Oh, yeah.
I worked as a tutor, and I was a substitute teacher for science. And that's how I got my movement into teaching.
Okay.
So it's kind of like saying I'm coming home.
Yeah, no, understood.
Hey, I have a question for you about some policies. Two things that are near and dear to the Liberty community, which makes up a big constituency of our listenership, are guns and weed. So I'm curious, what's your position on constitutional carry, which is carrying open or concealed without having to ask permission? And what's your position on decriminalization of marijuana in Texas?
Okay. Well, let me give you the answers plain and clearly on those. When it comes to constitutional carry, I have signed the pledge with Lone Star Gun Rights. It is on their website, and it is also on my website, which if you go to GabrielNila.com, I believe that the title is Why I Signed the Pledge.
And there's it's not only the petition, but the pledge to be proactive with constitutional carry legislation, correct?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. Anytime we can try to save the people money, I'm for it. And if we can have a person who wants to openly carry without having to pay a fee or pay a fine to the government, then I'm all for it.
A right becoming a privilege, pretty much.
Exactly. Now, when it comes to marijuana, on my website and even on Facebook, I have noted down that, and on my push cards that I have out, we are pushing for the decriminalization of marijuana. From what I've seen with the state legislature, everything has to go in steps. And the first step has to be with decriminalization. It ties into what I believe with my values of family. Maybe at one time, I can't say I'm a single father now because I just recently got married. When I was raising my daughter, I've raised my daughter since she was 4. She's now 19, getting ready to turn 20. And when I was raising my daughter, family was very important to me. It's her and I. As I always tell her, it's you and me against the world, and we're going to take care of what we have to take care of. These individuals that get arrested for possession, even for a small amount, have to spend too much time in jail. They're going to lose their jobs because they can't go in front of a judge in time.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, those individuals are going to lose possibly a high-paying position, or where they're going to be making quite a bit of money to take care of their families and try to find something new that will catch up to where they're at right now. And it may be difficult, especially based on their work experience. So
if they have a record now for marijuana use, and some employers won't like that.
Yeah. That's exactly. A Class B misdemeanor at the minimum.
So what we want to do is get it to the point where they get a ticket, they go home, they tell the family, hey, guess what? I messed up. I got this ticket. Okay, let's find a way to save the money so we can pay for this. That way they go to work next day. They don't have to go about bragging or go about talking to their employer saying, hey, by the way, I got arrested. All they do is go, they take care of what they have to take care of. No harm, no foul. Mm-hmm. And they continue they continue paying their taxes. They can continue working. Now, they continue supporting their family.
Now, would you be in favor of a decrim or legalization bill that also is tied to, I know, expansion of government, but a form of taxation, which is revenue generation for the state that's used to, say, offset property taxes, that you legalize marijuana production and it's taxed in a way that the revenue generated can be used to reduce the property tax burden. That is a huge burden here in the state of Texas. Property tax.
Are you talking about using the money to help pay for offset the property taxes, or are you talking about the production of marijuana?
Legalizing the production of marijuana, and if there's a tax on that, use that to offset the current property tax burden. Okay. Not to increase the revenue coming in, but as a zero-sum game, so we can reduce the property tax burden.
Okay, so let me expand a little bit on this part. When they get the fine or they get the ticket for possession, what we're looking at doing with that money is half of the money we want to make sure that it goes towards education for the kids. Okay, so that they can learn about what goes on when they use pot. I've talked to teenagers that are currently using, and we've seen some of the effects that it's having on them now. Okay, I know people will probably say to the contrary, and that's fine. But in talking to these people firsthand, I've seen some of the stuff that's going on, and that's fine. But we want to educate the kids so that they understand what goes on with the whole thing. When it comes to the production, I'm looking at this present time with going to the production of hemp, so that we can try to increase the funding on that end.
Hey, Gabriel, we're coming up on a break here on the program. This is the Be Brave Radio. Leland and Elizabeth are broadcasting live from the Senatorial District 14 convention here in Travis County, the Republican Party. And all throughout today's program, we're going to be joined by folks that are there at that event. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
What we wish
Welcome back to Be Brave Radio every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. here on Logos Radio Network. That's logosradionetwork.com, or you can hear us broadcasting throughout the airwaves over Central Texas on 89.1 FM TXLR. That's Texas Liberty Radio. We're joined by Don Zimmerman. He is the sitting city council member, District 6. We finally got somebody in there that has some libertarian tendencies, full-on libertarian, I should say, in the city council. It was a long time coming. Single-member districts were necessary to do it, and we're going to be chatting with him about what's going down with the Travis County Republican Party and political parties in general. And Don, let me ask you, we talked to Leland and Elizabeth on the onset of our program today. You've been involved with the Republican Party for decades now, and I remember stumping with you for Ron Paul back in 2007. Tell me, what's the climate like in the Travis County Republican Party now compared to them? Because I remember back then there was a groundswell of young radicals and all sorts of engagement from some anti-establishment types. Has that kind of worn off and it's back to the old guard, or what's the tendencies these days with the Travis County Republicans?
Let me back up first to... I appreciate the comment about the libertarian leanings. I do have those, but I joke that my libertarian competitors called me Republican and my Republican competitors called me libertarian. So it's kind of funny.
In the middle. It's the Don Zimmerman category.
To go back to what you'd said, yeah, we had a big movement in 2007, as you remember. But frankly, that movement was following Ron Paul. And when Ron stepped out, they didn't really follow Rand all that much because he had drawn himself a little too close to the political establishment, and that hurt him. So.
It seems that they've kind of split between Trump and, of all people, Bernie Sanders.
There's some of that too, but I want to go back to the party. It's a good question you ask. I'd like to broaden your question to what do you think the future of the political parties are? And I'm going to argue that the political parties now compared to 100 years ago are pretty much night and day. And I'm looking at potentially the end of the political parties as we know them. They just don't have the influence they used to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is we have so much media and ability for people to connect to each other directly. We have Facebook now, we have emails, websites, we have cell phones everybody carries. So what's different now compared to generations ago is everyone is so connected. You don't have to have somebody represent you. You can represent yourself, and you can form your own free associations outside of these traditional political parties.
And
that's what's different.
And back up until recently, the political party's main focus was to raise money to promote using the old model. But setting up a Facebook page and getting a Twitter account, just tweeting every 5 seconds, doesn't cost anything. Just time from the individual user. And the fact that they're making a point that when Trump ran for president, he self-funded his campaign, partially because he is independently wealthy, but also the way he ran his campaign cost less money than with the traditional political party model. And the other interesting thing to think about is you say that these towards the end of the political parties, there's a lot of races, such as your city council seat, that are technically considered nonpartisan, even though you identify with one party or another.
Well, that's true, but it's interesting. One of my stronger opponents was Jay Wiley in that city council race, and Jay Wiley had the endorsement of pretty much all the political establishment and the Bush Republicans. I went into the campaign. I really had no endorsements. I took a late tag endorsement, but I basically had no endorsements. And I spent less money than anybody else running in city council as far as dollars per vote, and I was still able to win. But that comes through networking, the fact that we have direct media, we have Facebook, we have all these low-cost ways to connect with voters. Yeah. So I see it as a positive development. The fact that grassroots people can wage better campaigns for less money, very positive development.
And the fact that these grassroots campaigns are actually interacting directly with your voters and potential constituents.
Yeah, so
that's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, the cost of entry is down. I think you alluded to that, but the cost of participation has come down owing to modern technology. These are good developments for our side.
Yeah, grateful for that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, even the Libertarian Party in many regards, are being seen now as like the great gatekeepers, the preservers of the status quo. And now that we have so much access to information and access to organize and network ourselves, as you said, I think people that want change, which is the majority of people, even old school Republicans too, I think they're kind of seeing that the emperor wears no clothes, and they're seeing the role that these parties have played for a while. What's your take on that?
Well, I agree. Really, the only thing the parties have left are the ballot access laws. If you think about it, they have ballot access laws.
Yeah, so because most people in the country have beliefs that kind of transcend the parties. They don't have one view or the other. So it's like it's kind of pitching on which party do you want to be part of. And it seems like they've gotten more extreme with their views that alienate a lot of the population.
It's true, but something for you guys to kick around when you consider this. What would you do, though, if you had, say, 100 people that wanted to run for state representative? If we had no parties and we just opened it up and it becomes wide open, the ballots could get pretty long. So I'm wondering if
is that the way it is though with the primary process though, where the ballots are pretty long? You just have to separate them out into two sections. And the interesting thing is in California they have the jungle primaries, which you can vote. The top two vote getters are the ones that go up to the general election. So it makes you wonder why the political parties over there have it dissolved quicker than the rest of the country.
It's a fair question, but I think changes are coming in our lifetime along these lines. There's got to be a better way to do this, and I think the political parties' power is diminishing, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a bit of a massive change. In fact, maybe perhaps even revolution in the next few years with the way the system is. I mean, obviously the system is broken, and it's make or break time.
Well, I think the revolution and the bullets start flying when people get hungry.
And you're hungry.
If the dollar
literally
collapses,
and physically.
Yeah, literally. Yeah,
always.
If the dollar collapses, as Ron Paul's been talking about, we may live to see that too. I hope not. But
I hope not too.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you so much, Don.
Thanks,
Have a
Don.
good day.
Take care.
And that was Don Zimmerman, Austin City Council member, District 6. I guess, touching upon the subjects from the first hour, why is it you have candidates first Ron Paul, but now you have was it the Bernie Sanders on the Democrat side and the Donald Trump on the Republican side? There is this new wave of populism, and it's exactly right. People are getting hungry. They are literally getting hungry. If you look at the dollar collapse, which is already happening, why is it that a burger and fries is $10?
Yeah.
I mean, why is it that a house that once cost maybe a couple $100,000 is now at least $500,000? If you look at the price of just the cost of living in general, everyone's being squeezed, and then you put mandatory expenses like Obamacare.
Well, so people are afraid.
Tax penalty.
Yeah, the fact
It's a
that
fraud.
I know, for my own taxes, but I know for an awful lot of other people that we were basically charged for, choosing to go a different way with our insurance or with our health. As an herbalist of 20 years of taking care of myself, I know how to take care of myself. Thank you very much. I would rather not be in a system like that. Yes, diagnostics, yes, emergency issues, absolutely, I honor that. But how dare they charge me as much as they did over not having the insurance? Not
and then
going
if you
along
have
with
the
the
insurance, guess what? It keeps tripling. It keeps doubling and tripling in price.
Well, America, the
Your
land
rates
is
will not
free,
go up.
or is it America, the land of the fee?
It's definitely the latter. There's no semblance of freedom. If you deal with your taxes or you do anything coming up on April 15th, it just gives you a complete understanding of how entitled the government is to our money and all our information. It's so invasive. The Form 1040 just upsets me so much.
And if you look at the guys that are running, or the people that are running for office that are true reformers, they always get demonized. If you look at the ads, even going back to what Barry Goldwater went through in 1964, the Daisy ad where they go like, "Oh, you really want this guy on the button on the nuclear trigger?" Or you have this another ad where it goes like, "Well, I'm a lifelong Republican, but I have to think twice because they made the mistake in San Francisco for nominating Goldwater," and yet the claims that they demonize the good guys with are what the bad guys actually are accomplishing. It was Johnson who expanded the war in Vietnam. It was Johnson that started the process of getting us off the gold and silver standard by making the coins out of copper alloys versus silver.
They're actually doing the exact same thing to Trump, what they did to Barry Goldwater. They're actually they called Barry Goldwater a Nazi and a fascist.
And a racist.
They literally, the cycle is repeating itself, and so it's astonishing to watch this media bias when, what is it, something like $63 million so far just in nasty ad campaigns have been thrown against Trump. And it's pretty amazing. To be honest, the more that they do, the more I'm actually, leaning towards him because, sorry, I'm anti-establishment, at least the way it is. I mean, look what's happening to, not only America, but to the planet at this point. And, I'm all for changing the system.
Yeah, it's getting really crazy out there, and
sure is.
Yeah, I'm still hesitant about Trump. I do think he has fascist tendencies, and I don't want to throw any support by him. But as you said, he is definitely the dark horse anti-establishment candidate, and as a decade plus conspiracy theorist and anti-government extremist, I can definitely appreciate that. One thing that I'm seeing is it's this. We were talking about this the other day here at store, Elizabeth. This weird double think, this paradox whereby these radical lefties, who aren't that radical at all, they're just like a throwback to communism. They are calling Trump Hitler and a Nazi, and they're concerned about it. Yet they themselves are engaging in Hitlerian tactics of disrupting these meetings and shutting down community discussions.
You have George Soros actually funding these paid protesters. It's not even an organic buildup. I mean, even if you look back to 2010 when you had the Occupy movement, that was not organic. It was funded by Soros. And
it started off organic.
It started off organic, got corrupted by Soros, and then the people in Occupy realized it was getting corrupted by Soros, and they quickly shut it down.
Well, and then we see these, sideways things happening, like, does everybody know that Kasich, was given, $202,000 200,000 from Soros, and that kind of makes a little bit of a difference.
And the fact that Soros is funding the Bushes as well. I mean, it's just.
Well, here's the thing. It's a curious inversion of logic, that all these people who are rioting against, the Trumps and what have you are actually the ones who are acting from the hate speech, who are acting from, harming diversity. That is what I love about our Constitution is that we do have the First Amendment. And, okay, maybe you don't like what I say, but at least I should be allowed to say it. I have no problem with protesting if you want to do it peacefully, but to shut down my rights to be able to have that say, well, sorry, go to another country, folks.
And then say that we're
not here.
And then if you look at what these protesters are doing, where they're actually threatening people with physical harm or
rioting, they're going to. Or
if you look at the Bloomberg cult, Mounts Man Action against the open carry movement, they say just shoot all the Second Amendment people. It's absolutely
they're
ridiculous.
the violent ones. It's so abundantly clear the divide and conquer tactics too, because after the Occupy movement, I helped to found Peaceful Streets Project, and I've kept the company of some left activists that were involved in Occupy. Some of them pretty dang left to where they have some communist tendencies, but some of them were my friends even before they got involved with Occupy. But ever since I spoke out against the tactics of shutting down the meetings, and since we've had like Roger Stone and Alex Jones speak at the event, I've had two people that I kept pretty close contact with defriend me on Facebook and want to have nothing to do with me because I'm friendly with fascists, which couldn't be further from the truth. Let's talk about divide and conquer and what's going on with the social climate as well as the political climate a little bit more on the other side of this break. This is B-Brave Radio. Leland, Elizabeth, John Bush coming at you live. Stick with us, folks. We'll be right back.
This is the Logos Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Be Brave Radio Show every Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. here on Logos Radio Network. You can also hear us throughout the airwaves in Austin, Texas on 89.1 FM. Shout out to Deborah and all the fine folks that make this transmission possible. I want to thank them for all their hard work and tireless support. And I believe the fundraiser that they were doing is over now. So thank you if you contributed to help keeping us on the air. Speaking of folks that are helping to keep us on the air, Cabo Bob's is our premier sponsor here on the program. You can check out the website at CaboBobs.com. It's basically a burrito shop, kind of like Chipotle, but better because they too pride themselves in the natural selections, but they have so many more choices. When I'm here at the store, there's not very many places around that I can eat. I used to frequent some of these Asian food restaurants that are above us, but it's all fried, and you can tell the quality of the meat and stuff is absolutely terrible, and it just stopped feeling good for me to eat there. So now the only two places that I eat are Chipotle, or more often than not, I drive up to Cabo Bob's for these burritos. So many choices, awesome food, no high fructose corn syrup in any of the sodas, non-GMO corn tortilla chips, which is pretty rare. And they now have two locations here in Austin. One of their first premier location is on 500 East Ben White Boulevard. It's right there just west of I-35 on Ben White. If you're old school, you remember when that road was more often referred to as Ben White. Now people call it 290 there. Or if you're down here on campus near the bookstore, check them out at 2828 Rio Grande. That's 2828 Rio Grande, just north of the bookstore, several blocks. And again, that's CaboBobs.com. Great food. I always get number 8, the Bob's Burrito Bowl. And Bob himself, his name's Don Brinkman. He runs the show there, and he's a big supporter of the local liberty movement and a huge supporter of our program. So if you appreciate the message that we bring you, if you appreciate us bringing on Jim Mars and Roger Stone and doing these broadcasts remotely, then support our sponsors because they're the ones that are supporting us. Before we went to break, we were talking about this divide and conquer tendency, and I just wanted to make a quick note on exactly what's going down here. There's a lot of young people that it's like this trendy lefty thing, this communist thing. There's even a group in Austin called Red Guard Austin, and they support Mao, Lenin, and Marx. Now the Marx thing,
you remember
Marx
when
is a fascist.
You remember when we were in college where every other person pretty much wore a Che Guevara shirt.
Yeah, it was the cool hip thing to do. But I never saw anybody worshiping Lenin or Mao. These guys are mass murderers. I couldn't believe it. On their Facebook group, they're joking about, they shared a story about Alex Jones. I forget what it was. And then somebody commented, I can't wait for the Red Terror to start because of people like this. And so I went on there and I was like, so what exactly is Red Terror? And somebody said, it's when we rise up against the reactionary fascists and we take them out. And then I started
what they should do is they should go
take up arms? Or are you going to take up arms? Or are you just talking about it? And of course they blocked me and didn't want to answer that question.
What they should do is they should go to North Korea and just try to take like one, poster and see what happens.
Like
you'll get sentenced to 15 years hard labor like that.
Otto Warmbier, that fellow who's 21, he was on a drinking binge, a little too much vodka overnight, and his church group asked him to bring back a little poster or some reminder, like a little souvenir. And sure enough, here's the thing. North Korea is totally looking for anything, that you can do wrong as a tourist, because then they use you as leverage with your government.
They are complete command control society, complete top-down socialism.
Yeah, send them there. Could we send them all there, please?
That's where this ends up.
You want socialism? Go and move to Pyongyang and see how long that lasts. Hope you enjoy having the propaganda chirping all hours of the night because you can't turn your speakers off.
Look, here's the thing. I want to really say congratulations to the people who are not following the narrative that the media is pushing, all the media bias. For the people who are staying united, regardless of your opinions about religion or race or anything. The whole point is that when we work together as a people, what is it? United we stand, divided we fall. For me, we saw a little bit of the curtain being revealed a few days ago when MSNBC, actually, the host Tamron Hall was deliberately pointing out some sort of Donald Trump rally, and they're like, well, here's someone now, and it ended up being an African American man who was a supporter of Trump, who literally was coming out saying, look, we all just need to get along, and let's look at the things that matter and not pay attention to what the media is saying. And basically, it's so funny. She was so gobsmacked, she was so shocked, and they cut the sound from him. She literally said, because she was flabbergasted, she was like, we have chosen to cut that sound from him, and so right there, we saw that there was an agenda being pushed, and the fellow that they filmed did not fall into that narrative.
Didn't Trump just pick up a huge African American church endorsement?
Well, there's Ben Carson too, who's endorsing him, and
yes.
even Farrakhan. I mean, so much for being racist. Not some are saying that Ben Carson may end up even be the VP nominee.
Oh wow, that's not a bad move.
He would be good. Not as a Surgeon General, because he would be pushing vaccines on everybody.
Yeah, there's an issue.
But what was the other thing that we were talking about that he would be good at in the cabinet?
Putting people to sleep.
It's for education. Well, that too.
Well, yeah, the Secretary of Sleep of Accounting Sheets.
Secretary of Slumber.
Oh, bless. Yeah. I mean,
it's also on the liberty side too, not just on the communist side. Which, if you don't fit their narrative, I've had a bunch of people defriend me for supporting Trump. A bunch of people that would rather support the Libertarian Party's version of Mitt Romney, known as Gary Johnson.
Well, and
because Rand was a stillborn candidate this go around.
Yeah. Well, because unfortunately the herd is paying attention to what, the media is spouting out, and they're taking it as rule and rule of law and what have you. And it's simply not true. I mean, you've got all these Jewish, heads and commentators coming out saying, don't you dare compare him to Hitler. He is not Hitler. You are insulting the people that did die during the Holocaust.
Exactly.
How dare you compare a man like that to Hitler? Because it's a very different dynamic. Who has he killed?
He hasn't killed anybody.
What is this? So I mean, again, look.
He's killed a bunch of government waste. With in the city of New York, where we took over a bunch of projects in the 1980s that were dollars behind and delayed, and he was able to get them finished in months.
I think it's important, as you said, that we rise above all of this discord and division and vitriol, really, because politics, I hate it when people say, oh, we don't talk politics or religion. But people don't precisely because it is so divisive. And it's the season right now, and people just get thirsty for blood. And at the end of the day, a year from now or 2 years from now, when the election's all over, a lot of this stuff is going to be less important to people. People just get all riled up. So I think it's important to let the politics aside. I've always said that within the liberty movement, there's a bunch of jerks and a bunch of a-holes. And I personally would rather spend my time having a beer or just, chatting with someone in line to get a burger, whether they're socialist or not. If they're a good person, if they're friendly, if they're kind, if they're compassionate, that is more important to me than what their politics are. That being said, I don't want anybody that supports people, being bussed off to internment camps. But at the end of the day, it's all about the human connection, not about what letter you have next to your name.
And the thing is that you look at people that someone would identify themselves as a big Bernie supporter, and they have a lot, and you get into a one-on-one conversation with these guys, a civil conversation with these guys, and there's a lot that they have that you would have in common with them. I mean, the civil conversation between Robert Morrow and James Dickey, they had a lot of political ideas in common.
Well, the whole point is to see where we can actually get along. There's a political theory called the horseshoe theory, where often people on seeming opposites actually end up looking an awful lot like each other. There's certain things that are true. Donald Trump is saying that the system is broken, and Bernie Sanders is also saying that the system is broken. Okay, so how can we meet in the middle and find some sort of way to make everybody happy about that? Obviously they're both anti-establishment.
They both hate the Federal Reserve. They both want to audit the Federal Reserve.
And then you've got all these sort of Republican, Rockefeller Republicans, that are sort of in the middle that, and they're literally called that. And they don't want the system to fall apart. They want their privileges. They want their money. They want their power. And they would rather have that globalist Hillary that, they'd almost rather cross over.
Who actually does have a body to count.
And actually, something like 80 people. Something like 80 people. But these, Rockefeller Republicans would rather actually have this criminal Hillary. My gosh.
Yeah,
well,
it's
seriously?
a trip.
And
we're coming up on a break. Be Brave Radio. Be brave, folks. Check us out. Leland and Elizabeth are brave. They're in the Republican convention.
Ever think about all the things you toss into the garbage and how they might someday be used against you? Well, most of us don't. I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. In a moment, I'll tell you why you should.
Google is watching you, recording everything you've ever searched for and creating a massive database of your personal information. That's creepy, but it doesn't have to be that way. Startpage.com is the world's most private search engine. Startpage.com doesn't store your IP address, make a record of your searches, or use tracking cookies, and they're third-party certified. If you don't like Big Brother spying on you, start over with Startpage. Great search results and total privacy. Startpage.com, the world's most private search engine.
Billionaire casino mogul Kirk Kerkorian was perplexed when his much younger wife Lisa turned up expecting. Kerkorian smelled a rat because a few years before, doctors had determined he was medically unable to father a child. He suspected the father was Hollywood producer Stephen Bing, notorious for also fathering actress Liz Hurley's baby. However, to no one's surprise, Bing refused to take a paternity test. So Kerkorian hired an investigator who went fishing about Bing's garbage from the curb outside his house. They hit pay dirt when a used piece of dental floss yielded the DNA evidence linking Bing to the newborn baby. What did you throw away today? I'm Dr. Catherine Albrecht. More news and information at CatherineAlbrecht.com.
Actually be kidding about chemtrails.
Live Free Speech Radio, LogosRadioNetwork.com.
Then when I get back on my feet again, I can climb so high that I won't feel low. And I keep on praying, baby, that when I get where I am going, you'll be showing me a blue sky road. Open my mind, no longer blind. I know I'm coming off the ground. And open my eyes, spread my wings to fly out.
Welcome back to Be Brave Radio on Logos Radio Network, 89.1 FM. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got a unique broadcast today. Elizabeth and Leland are at the Senate District 14 convention here in Travis County, rubbing shoulders with the Republican Party. Leland, let me ask you this: what's your take on everything going on? I know that you're pretty motivated to gain some influence there in the Republican Party, and this is really fun and exciting for you. Are you going to be making it as a state delegate? When does that get determined?
That gets determined later this afternoon. There's a few processes to become state. There is the direct election from your, the precinct convention to the Senate District Convention. Then you have slots allocated per precinct. My particular precinct has one delegate and one alternate. And then there's another process where you go through the nominations committee and they pick people at large. So that way you can have more than what is allocated through your precinct to go to the state convention itself. So right now there's two people that can go to the state convention through the direct election from caucusing within the precinct. But then there is the at-large, that's probably how I'm going to be going through, is the at-large, because we were talking it over where I could have taken an alternate slot automatic, but it seems through, I really get that it seems pretty favorable that I'll be able to get it through nominations. So hope I didn't just jinx myself on the radio, but keep my fingers crossed. But I feel very optimistic that I'll be able to go to state.
And it looks like I might be going too. So
Awesome.
It should be definitely an adventure. I had to go before the nominations committee just the other day as well, and that was fascinating. They were very fun, great group of people.
So there's the nominations committee, then there's also the resolutions committee, which is where delegates can submit resolutions to be included into the party chair, the party platform. And the party platform is it's non-binding, but it is a directive of how the party should conduct itself and how the candidates that run under the said party conduct themselves. Like, for example, if in the party platform there was constitutional carry in the party platform 2 years ago, the fact that the legislature went against the party platform should be considered a huge bad thing, and there isn't a censure resolution, which people could be kicked out of the party for not following the party platform, which a lot of people have tried to add throughout the years. And every 2 years, when we go through this convention process where it goes, you have the precinct conventions, you have the Senate district conventions, which are in right now, then you have the state conventions, and only in the presidential years you have the national convention. You come up with a new party platform for the party to run for the next 2 years.
Interesting. And the Republican Party platform over the years is actually pretty dang libertarian. And if all of the Republican elected representatives actually followed it, I think Texas would be a dramatically different place. What do you think about that, Leland?
Could you repeat that real quick?
I was saying the Republican Party platform, at least when I was paying more attention to it, was actually had a lot of strong libertarian strains to it. And if the seated representatives actually followed it, I think Texas would be better off for it. But of course,
absolutely. And the thing is, if you look at the Texas Senate and you look at the Senate leadership, you look at Dan Patrick, who has been a wonderful surprise to me. I'll go on record that I regret doing this, was supporting Jerry Patterson a lot 2 years ago. And then he just kind of, I don't know what to think with the statement he had, after he lost the lieutenant governor's race, where he was supporting, was it Rubio? And then he was against constitutional carry. But the fact that, and I was going, well, why do we want Patrick over Patterson? It seems like Patterson would be more consistent and sort of like the other way around. And the fact that you have a Texas Senate that is was very in line with the party platform, and it's actually the Texas House of Representatives that is not following the party platform. In fact, a lot of people say that Strauss basically is a closet Democrat due to a lot of the legislative policies that were enacted through his lieutenants, and a lot of pro-liberty, limited government, or even conservative aspects bills from the Texas Senate were killed because he didn't agree with it. And the fact that Strauss himself does not follow the party platform, and Dan Patrick does. And you just see the dynamic where you have these two very contrasting legislative bodies.
Yeah,
in the Texas legislature. That's why one of the reasons why even the watered-down open carry and constitutional carry bill, open carry and campus carry bill. The constitutional carry didn't even get a hearing, but the open carry and campus carry bills that made it through, they made it through the Senate as quickly as possible. Those were the first bills heard in hearing. Those were the first bills passed off the floor. That was all done in March. The fact that the House sat on those bills for a month and a half, then started the process with their own House open carry bills they had, and they made this quid pro quo agreement saying, okay, one chamber gets one bill, the other chamber gets the other bill. So the House got open carry and the Senate got campus carry. But the fact that both these bills almost died in the last week of the session because of the fact that Strauss didn't want to pass them at all, and the fact that there was this just contrast with the Senate, and the fact that they weren't following a party platform. It was just a mess.
And what do you guys think about Obama coming forward with this quote-unquote cough moderate choice for Supreme Court Justice Merrick Garland, who's totally not for the Second Amendment?
Compared to Sotomayor and Kagan, yes, that's a moderate, but it's sort of like saying, okay, where would you rather have your finger chopped off or your entire arm?
Yeah, exactly.
What about this guy's role in was the Oklahoma City bombing or something?
Yeah, well, it's also into the Unabomber. Supposedly, he was investigating both, and I remember we were talking to Holland the other day, and he's like the Mr. Fix-It. Is this like some sort of reward for covering up things that went on there, or?
Yeah, if you play ball and if you go along to get along, and if you help with these massive, egregious false flags and attacks, then you're kind of anointed to move on to the next phase. It's kind of like a rite of passage, an initiation, and that's pretty scary. It means that
he's been a good boy.
Cover-up artist. They got to know that they can trust you. That's why they do like these skull and bones rituals where they do these weird homosexual acts. Not that there's anything against homosexuality, but if it's used as a manipulative tactic to expose someone and it's like some weird seance kind of deal, it's pretty scary. So they do like weird sex acts on each other. And then they say, we're going to show everyone.
Yeah,
Don't tell your wife.
It's usually somewhere involved with some sort of sexual fetish, sexual crime. If you research all the the information around Boys Town and there's a lot of information on that from years ago and what have you. Is that's what happens is that you're invited to certain clubs or certain parties where certain things go on and it's all massaged in a certain way, and then the video is caught of you maybe doing what you shouldn't be doing.
Although it's funny is that Hulk Hogan just won a $100 million plus lawsuit against Gawker for having them leak his sex tape, which I find of interest. And Gawker was saying, we were protected on the First Amendment. But the fact is that the tape wasn't theirs. They got this tape through illicit means. And it's interesting is that Hulk Hogan said a bunch of things that were not politically correct on that tape, which, didn't even know that was actually being made during the time, which have, come out and has kind of put a break on what's left of his career as a very kind of racist thing. He said that it just made a lot of headlines where everyone just came out and condemned Hulk.
Kramer did the same thing, right?
Terry Bollea. But the fact is that Terry Bollea, Hulk Hogan, was able to get a $115 million judgment against Gawker, which actually might drive Gawker out of business.
Oh, well, too bad, so sad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They've been working for the establishment for a while. Well, that's the thing. Is can you imagine, the different sex tapes and what have you that people like our politicians all have? Imagine the shenanigans they get.
Yeah, I wonder if that's what Hillary has that is holding over half of Washington's head. More reason to have Trump come in.
Right? Can you imagine what
the
she's
NSA has access to it. All right, folks, we're coming up on another break. This is Be Brave Radio, talking politics, talking sex tapes, all things that are good. We'll be right back after this short word from our sponsors.
Evil.
Welcome back to Be Brave Radio. Elizabeth stepped aside for a moment, and Leland now has Andy Hogue, who was the communications director for Travis County Republican Party.
Still is the communications director of the Travis County Republican Party. That's an interesting dynamic because what happens to the Travis County Republican Party, the switch over to the new chairman, Robert Morrow, is in June. And the fact that there has been a lot of media coverage of the chairman's race, a lot of these news agencies, other than Breitbart, have lifted my photos and have not credited me for that, but Breitbart has credited me for these photos. And Andy, why don't you take it away with the reaction, the initial reaction of all the media coverage of the chairman's race, and how has the party moved forward since the March 1st election?
Yeah, first of all, I am very, very surprised. Extremely surprised, and not only just by the results of March 1st, but also by how graciously we've handled it. Now, I know you've heard the words, you've seen Matt Mackowiak say we're going to secede and break away from the organization, but really, I think most of the delegates want to know more about him. They don't really know Robert aside from his tweets. All they've heard about is this JFK conspiracy theories and his ads in the paper about Rick Perry, but they're like, is he really, there's somebody behind him? And most people have sought to give him a chance. And I think our resolution reflects that, and that we have censored his viewpoints, not necessarily him as a person. We really don't know him yet. But I'm really impressed with the way the party has moderately approached this without being reactionary.
Well, the fact that also that he and current chairman James Dickey were here earlier this morning before the convention got started, and they actually had about a 30 minutes or plus cordial conversation. There was actually a lot of political ideas that they are aligned with. And so it's the kind of thing that, how is the party going to move forward? How is Robert going to move forward? Adapt to be something a little bit less caustic and more inviting towards people that would be interested in supporting the Republican Party.
Yes, well, James is going to appoint a committee to look at the bylaws and see how we can accommodate Robert. I mean, he certainly has said in public, I don't want to do anything with the day-to-day operation of the party. That's on him. He wants to be a mouthpiece. He wants to use this for a bully pulpit. All Robert.
He told me that today. So I asked him, it's like, do you know what the work is of the party? It's running the elections. It is running the conventions. It is fundraising for candidates and recruiting candidates.
And that's where we're going to have a hard time with a donor confidence, with public relations. However, if we can find a way to show that we're bigger than one elected official, I think John's going to love that, but we're not just led from the top down. We are a grassroots organization. If we can show that, yeah, Robert is a part of our party. Yes, his function is the chairman, but the rest of the party has a function too. And we're going to do it in a way that's a team. I think that's going to actually increase donor confidence and actually maybe just will become the envy of every Republican Party in the country. And set a new, well, yeah, maybe I'm being wishful, but if I have anything to say about it, we're going to set a new day for Republican politics on the county level and be the envy of the whole country.
Sounds like Rahm Emanuel, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Well,
he's got that right.
Well, like you said, Andy, like you and James and pretty much everyone but Makoviak has really taken the high road on this thing. Once the dust settled, kind of.
Yeah. Well, Matt, of course, was reacting on his own token. He did not represent the Travis County Republican Party, but I'm glad he said what he said. I'm glad we had that resolution, and I'm glad people are being honest. The worst thing we can have right now is people holding it all in or acting like everything's just fine. But no, the fact that people are coming out and speaking their mind and doing it in a way that's fair to Robert, I think it says a lot about the grassroots and what a wonderful party we have.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's what always differentiated the Republicans from, was it the Democrats or these hardcore communists, is that you can't have discussions with a lot of these guys without them labeling you a racist or a bigot or whatnot and just having a one-side thing. And if you don't agree with them 100%, then you're in the wrong. And that's just not right. The whole point of having politics is discussion of policy. What is the best way, after discussing it with and doing a bunch of studies, to see what is the best way of going forward with the way governments and politics are managed.
Absolutely, and I think as long as we have this mechanism where we can, perennially have a convention and discuss our platform principles together, and, well, God forbid, democratically, that's the best way forward. We can actually it's good for catharsis, but it's also good as a barometer to see where public opinion is at. As long as we have that, I think we'll still have a pretty good mechanism, at least here on the local level. I can't speak as much for RNC, but hey, here locally, I think we're in good shape.
Hey, everything always starts at the local level, anyways.
That's right.
Hey, Andy, what's the turnout like for these conventions? You've been to the past conventions for several sessions now. Can you compare the 2012 presidential cycle district convention turnout to what it's like today?
I think we're seeing a lot more people today. Now in 2012, we had to meet in the parking garage for the latter half of our convention.
I heard about that.
Yeah. Hyde Park Baptist had some thing they had to do for church, but we're in a charter school today, and we have, I think, about 1,200. I'm going to get the number here, and I'll give it to Leland, give him the exact statistics. But we have a lot more enthusiasm now. Our delegate strength is lower because it's based on the number of people who voted for Greg Abbott, and he had it in the bag, so not a lot of people came out to vote in a contested primary. So we do have less capacity.
Was it the primary or was it the general?
I'll be the general says that, yeah.
Great. Hey, Andy, before we let you go, why don't you share with the listeners some of the social media sites or websites where people can go to keep up with what's going down with the Travis County GOP?
Yes, glad to. Look for us on Twitter at Travis County GOP. Look for us on Facebook. Just type in Travis County GOP. We have an unofficial forum called Travis County Republicans. Look it up. Argue with us. We're always glad to have somebody there. And we don't have Snapchat yet, but I don't think anybody cares.
And don't forget the Travis Tracker as well.
The Travis Tracker. Oh, man, I should have said that. That's my blog. It's my project, a portal of just everything out there. We'd be glad to mention Be Brave Radio on it, too. Maybe track with you and list you as a partner.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Andy. We now have someone here in the studio at Be Brave, Brave Studios, whatever the heck we're calling it. We're joined by Joel Anthony Williamson. That's J-A-W, Jaw, a.k.a. Joel. And he's going to chat with us about a project he and some of his what do you call it, comrades are working on. And that is a documentary about anarchism here in Austin. So, Joel, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, just hanging out. Ready for today?
He's a little hot, John.
Yeah, tell us about the project, Joel.
Sure. Anarchism in Austin was inspired by a documentary called Anarchism in America, which is basically just a collage of interviews and footage from different events that has happened around America, just showcasing the rebellious spirit within the American people, underlined within the American spirit. And we're kind of coattailing that and focusing on Austin instead of the entire nation, because there's a whole lot of anarchism in Austin.
There's a lot of anarchists in Austin. Who are some of the big names that you guys are going to be featuring in this documentary?
Sure. Well, we are interviewing people who actually already live in Austin and anarchists who come through Austin as well. So far, we've had the privilege of interviewing Scott Crow. Bob Murphy has been on. Today, we're going to interview Lynn Ulbricht. And hopefully we get to interview you and Kat soon.
All right.
And not
Speaking of
limited to
anarchists,
that.
what's your views on the cool thing I think that we have going on here at Brave New Books and with a good bulk of the liberty community is that here, perfect example here we have Leland and Elizabeth at the Republican convention. We're brushing shoulders with Don Zimmerman, with Andy Hogue, with all sorts of Republican Party bigwigs. Yet, most of the people that work here at the store and that are part of the community are just full on anarchists. Well, what's your view compared to how other communities interact with one another on basically just toleration and just being friends and putting basically the community before our different political differences? Because at the end of the day, we all want more freedom. We may go about it in different ways, but the way I see this, there's a lot of camaraderie and friendliness between these divergent philosophies. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important not to view one another as enemies per se. I think that the path to liberty is going to necessarily be multi-pronged. What I am interested in is seeking alternatives versus the traditional electoral route. I'm not going to hate on people if they are into that, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, if we want to be serious about actually achieving any sizable, what we consider anarchy, would be through considering alternatives rather than only focusing on parliamentary activism. Because I think if we just look at history, America began as a country that was supposed to be bound by the Constitution, and it's turned into the largest empire known to man. And all the while, we've had well-intentioned people working within the system trying to change that. And I think if that isn't telling, that we need to figure out something else outside of prescribed modes of political change, then I don't know what is. But
so what? How long are y'all going to be in production of this documentary, and when can we expect its release? Do y'all have any tentative dates yet, or any ranges?
Well,
give me a season here.
Yeah, sure. Well, hopefully at the beginning of next year, it will be complete. But I have a suspicious feeling that just understanding how much time this is actually going to take, editing and figuring out the interview and all that stuff, it might be a little bit longer. But
it's a big undertaking for sure.
Yeah, it sure is.
And all right, we got less than a minute left. You're interviewing Lynn today. What are some of the big themes that y'all will hit on with Lynn Ulbricht, the mother of Ross Ulbricht?
Well, sure. Well, I mean, first we just want to ask her how she's been, make sure that she's doing all right. She had a little bit of some issues there, just dealing with the stress of the situation. So we want to make sure that she's okay. But also we want to talk about Ross Ulbricht, who is pretty famous now. He's received 2 life sentences for creating a website. And just going to talk about what her political philosophy is, how she got involved with it, whether or not the case has shaped her political opinions, and how other people can get involved.
Right on. All right, thanks for joining us, Joel Anthony Williamson. That's J-A-W, Jaw. We'll be right back after this short break.